Thank you, guys.
Mark, thank you very much.
Yeah, please, thank you.
Yep.
I need notes.
Hi, I'm Kate.
Hi, Aaron.
Great to meet you.
Thank you.
Don't
Thank
remember
you.
that episode.
I'm a fan of your guys'
Oh, nice.
spot.
Awesome. What do you do?
I have an online platform called Miss Grass. It's a female-focused brand.
Oh, nice.
I'm Kate.
Mark.
Great to meet you.
You'll have to give me the reference.
Your buddy's with Jackie Aish, right?
Oh, yeah. Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Very cool. You know her?
Yeah.
Awesome.
How are you? I'm good. Good. We need a catch up.
Good afternoon. Thank you for attending the panel on the modern cannabis consumer experience. And in essence, really today, we're going to talk about the modern cannabis consumer and all the experiences that the panelists and their businesses and efforts are finding around it. I'd like to introduce myself. My name is Brad Davis. I am the product manager of Acorn Paper Cannabis Packaging. We are a full spectrum packaging, supply chain logistical solution set, and regulatory compliance consulting group, division of Acorn Paper, the largest and oldest independent packaging company on the West Coast. And I'm pleased to be a part of this panel today. We are going to cover off primarily on discussing the changes in the cannabis consumer, how that has affected their businesses, how it is affecting the way and impacting the way that they are attempting to reach that consumer, and some challenges and trends that we are seeing in the marketplace right now. I'm going to allow each panelist to introduce themselves, give you a brief background on themselves and their company, and I've also asked each one of them to let you know how long they've been in the industry. And I myself have been in the industry from a professional standpoint for 5 months. So but as I told someone earlier, decided to take a passion of mine and turn it into a business. So I imagine there may be a few of you out there that have had the same experience. So we're going to get started. We'll have about 35 minutes of Q&A, and then we'll open it up to the floor afterwards for the last 10 to 15 minutes. Hey guys, when recreational was legalized in when it went into effect January 1, 90% of Californians had not stepped into a dispensary before. I imagine it's probably about 88% now had not stepped into a dispensary before. And so each day, your businesses and your companies are seeing new consumers and new potential customers walk into your doors or look at your products for the first time. I would like to hear from the panel as to their impression of who the new modern consumer is. And how it is different and evolving from what many of in the marketplace perceive as the, if you will, the informed stoner community that has made up a vast majority of the consumer experience so far. I'm going to let them intro themselves, yeah. So I actually am going to start with Circe, as she's been in the industry for a while, from what I understand, and has also has seen several changes just over the past couple of years. Circe, tell me about yourself, your company, and how you see that consumer changing.
Okay, so I come from the sports space originally. I was a professional athlete who developed some of the first women's products in snowboarding. I had a pro model boot with Vans and pro boards that were really specifically designed for women in mind. I suffered multiple knee injuries and then parlayed that into managing athletes and have been a sports agent for 20 years. Cannabis has always been kind of omnipresent in my life, and all of the athletes that I work with have consumed in some capacity at some point in their lives and careers, mostly medicinally, maybe without knowing it. I have been in the cannabis industry for 2 years now. We've had product in market for about a year. I have a brand called Hot Knife, which was really primarily financed through my clients. I have used cannabis myself for most of my life. And I'm a very holistic person and really excited about the medical benefits and the evolving consumer, which is, I think, much more interested in the healing modalities and aspects of cannabis than just getting stoned. I have been doing a lot of our own staff appreciation and vendor days, and so I'm really getting kind of front lines data, which has been really rewarding, challenging, but rewarding. And what I'm finding is that consumers tend to be kind of, as the new consumer evolves, really looking for information and education, and really looking to retail and online platforms to help them kind of navigate what is a very complex and layered space. We, as you know, don't have a ton of data and research. A lot of that is starting to come out, but it's still pretty complex and confusing. So I would say the short answer is the new consumer is one looking for information and a guidance counselor as they are looking for help or relief. And the core consumer, I think, by and large, continues to either get their products from friends or black market or grow or manufacture themselves.
Kate.
Yeah. Hi, my name is Kate Miller. I have worked in the industry. Actually worked at a dispensary back in 2008 when I was attending University of Southern California. But then, but then I graduated, had a 10-year career in entertainment, working for a guy in Los Angeles called Ben Silverman, who ran NBC Universal for a while. He's done The Office and Ugly Betty and Biggest Loser. And then most recently, I was living in New York and ran brand partnerships for Lorne Michaels' company, Broadway Video, across his film, television, and digital properties, including Saturday Night Live, Tonight Show with Jimmy Fallon, Late Night with Seth Meyers, Portlandia, and a bunch of other things. Back in 2008, when I was working at a dispensary, I really noticed the void in the marketplace for a brand that spoke to that female consumer in an elevated premium way. Everything at the time really leaned into that stoner stigma. So bought the Miss Grass URL back then, and obviously it has manifested to what it is today, which is 10 plus years later. But it launched in January, so I got back into the space over a year ago to really pursue it full time and bring Miss Grass to life. In terms of your question on who the modern consumer is, in my opinion, it's more of a conscious consumer. So it's a consumer that's using cannabis beyond just getting high. So it's a consumer that's using it for its many applications, for things like aiding in sleep and anxiety, and integrating it into their beauty routine for its anti-inflammatory properties. And to Cersei's point, it's definitely a consumer that's looking for more education so that they can be more educated consumers and integrate it into their own lifestyle in however way it best serves them.
Awesome. Aaron, to the education part, I'll be interested to hear how you're addressing who see that consumer as being, and then how that is impacting your in-store and in retail discussions with the consumers. Please introduce yourself.
Yeah, so my name is Aaron Justice. I'm president of Buds and Roses. We're a high-end boutique cannabis retailer here in Los Angeles. We opened in 2007. I first got into the industry when I was 15. I first used cannabis when I was 17. If that tells you anything. And I started a hemp clothing company when I was 21, which is 20 years ago. So I've been in the industry for a while. You know, with this modern customer, I mean, overall, they're not much different than the customers that we were serving. Because of our environment, we had a lot of doctors and medical centers that would refer patients to us who had very little knowledge of cannabis, and definitely were not stoners, so we're kind of used to that. I would say, though, that sometimes now we get very uninformed folks who are usually from outside the area or outside of the state that may just pop in and they've never even talked to a doctor or maybe even Googled it in the last so many years. So they're just walking by. With them, we just try not to overwhelm them because cannabis products can be really complicated if you get into it. And we try to keep it simple with them. We have introductory products for them, such as pre-rolls, vape pens, low-dose edibles. And the truth is, though, if they continue to come back, it only takes a few times for them to kind of get up to speed with our current customers because we focus a lot on educating them. So that's kind of my take on that.
So, Mark, already hearing a lot of focus on educating our consumers that need to be educated. Let us know a little bit about yourself and what consumer you see as being out there that's looking for this education.
Sure. So I'm Mark Hawashi, founder and CEO of Doja. Doja is a platform of community reviews that helps consumers find cannabis products and brands that meets their lifestyles and medical needs. I've been in the industry for about 3 years. So I recently came across an article on herb.co that said that seniors over 65 was the fastest growing demographic of cannabis users. And seniors, like the rest of the population, are opting for cannabis over prescription drugs to treat for pain management and other illnesses. So we're starting to see more and more people with the decreased stigma and the increased popularity. These people are trying cannabis for the first time, or for the first time since high school, right? So and then at the same time, there's this massive innovation that's happening in cannabis, right? From vape pens and in concentrates now. There's shatter, rosin, crumble. So when you combine these two, I would say that the difference between the modern consumer and the traditional stoner is that they're largely cannabis uneducated, yet they're trying to be savvy at the same time, right? These are people walking into dispensaries and they have questions like, what should I try, or how much of it should I eat, or is this safe? Even with the compliant packaging, they're like, is 45 milligrams a chocolate? Is that a lot?
Exactly. You mentioned seniors, and there has been a substantial amount of research showing that the 55 plus population, the fastest growing of the entire consumer base out there. Emily, hi.
Hello.
Welcome.
Pardon my tardiness. Thank you.
What have you seen in regards to, tell us a little bit about yourself and your company and how long you've been in the industry, and then how you perceive the consumer today or how they're changing?
Okay, so again, my name is Emily O'Brien. I'm the owner and founder of Mondo. It's a cannabis company designed for anxiety relief. The purpose essentially is I'm trying to take Xanax out of the market. I really want to have people have a more natural plant medicine. Thank you. No, but I mean, that's really kind of what we're all trying to do, is kind of allow people to kind of advocate for their own health and bring kind of more education to the forefront. I've owned Mondo for 5 years. I've been in the industry for about 7, so I've definitely seen a change in consumer. When I first started, it was definitely that kind of heavier stoner. People really wanted to kind of feel and get high and get the most bang for their buck. And over the years, especially now of recent, we're getting a lot of people coming in just saying, well, what is CBD? What is THC? Can I feel good? Can I still function? I want to sleep. And so people are coming forth trying to figure out how they can incorporate cannabis into their life rather than just like more of a recreational thing. It's kind of it's a new use. It's the new canna consumer, and people are much more canna curious.
Yeah.
It is a new use, and I like canna curious.
Canna curious.
Quick follow-up. before we move on, how this has changed your the way you reach this consumer. And anyone can answer this. When you're faced with consumers that whether they are uneducated or whether they want to appear educated, how do you think that aspect of the lack of knowledge impacts the way products and brands have to approach the marketplace? Because it used to be, and I'll give you an example, there may be some people in the audience, myself included, who know what Skywalker OG is going to do. The modern consumer looks at Skywalker and goes, "Star Wars? What?" So we've heard athletes, we hear addressing medical needs from anxiety to actual physical needs. How do you see brands and companies responding to that need to educate in an easy manner this new consumer?
I can touch on that a little bit. The main thing that we didn't really prepare for with adult use was all the customers that come in groups. So a lot of them are coming, 3 or 4 people at a time. And this just showed us that it's because the process is still intimidating for them. And we know there's a lot of negative propaganda out there about cannabis. So when people come in and they have questions and they're intimidated, we do everything we can so they don't feel dumb, they don't feel silly. We just encourage them, and we do this in a high-end, respectable environment so they don't feel that they're part of some weird subculture. This is just the thing to do. So that's kind of the overall theme that we have to combat those negative stereotypes.
I have a little point. For products, it's really important to kind of guide the user on what the experience is going to be. Like you were just saying with Skywalker, we don't know how that's going to feel. How does 45 milligrams of THC feel? And even within sativa, indica hybrid, that doesn't really mean anything. It's just kind of a slight indication. So I'm actually really happy to see that products are being put out on the market that are saying this is euphoric, this is relief, this is blissful, this is sleep. And so it kind of will gently guide the user into a little bit more of a greater knowledge. And then also going to retail stores where they have that kind of comfortable setting where they can warm and welcoming and education rather than, oh, you don't know? Well, here's that.
I think it's worth noting that we all react differently. We all have our endocannabinoid system, but how certain strains or terpenes or cannabinoids affect us is totally different. And I think this is a really unique opportunity. Cannabis is kind of a catalyst for the opportunity for individualized medicine. And I think that technology and community and conversation is really going to be how we solve that and hone in on what works for you. And there will be platforms and retailers that evolve into really great information databases, as well as testing and really the track and trace, which will allow us to kind of really have defined data, and that you can go back and really acknowledge what is and isn't working for you as you kind of investigate and explore what is really ultimately the best medicine for you.
Wow. You mentioned track and trade. You just give a brief overview for the audience as to what track and trade is. Anyone?
I think you're probably the...
It's just, track and trace is just being able to trace the plant from the beginning, or the seedling or the clone, all the way specifically to the products that they are in. So an edible product will eventually trace all the way back to the original seed or plant, so that if there's issues or recalls or anything like that, they can trace it. And it's supposed to go into effect in July. We'll see if it does, but it's coming.
We'll talk about that in a minute. Yeah.
I mean, it allows for some accountability too, as we start to really, it's like, who knows what's in a lot of stuff now. I think the accountability that comes with that actually can serve us as consumers.
How has, Aaron, I would like to address this first to you, being the most apparent consumer-facing business owner directly with a retail establishment. There's been a lot of coverage recently as to the new retail environment. I'm curious as to how the new consumer, this consumer that needs to be informed, maybe older, maybe female, we've not talked a lot about that yet, which, Kate, I'd like you to address in just a moment. How has that affected what you do within your retail environment outside of making sure your bud tenders are informed and know how to educate and talk to the consumer?
Yeah, I mean, I think the modern consumer is also more impacted by the world that we live in than adult use. So, you know, we live in this Amazon.com world now. So we're trying to just be a modern day retailer, because a lot of cannabis operations, you know, operate like they're a 1990 retailer. And we do have a lot of roadblocks that kind of cause that. But, you know, retail in general has to step it up in this new world to really succeed. So we have loyalty rewards programs. We do online ordering for express pickup. We're launching delivery. We use a point of sale system that tracks what customers have purchased so we can better meet their needs right there at on the sales floor. We're implementing quicker ways for people to buy in the store. So sure, you can go to the counter and consult a little bit, or you can buy from someone on the floor in a mobile setting. So we're just adapting to really what all retailers in this day and age are: text messaging marketing, CRM software for email campaigns, and interacting and educating the customer.
Kate, you represent quite a few different brands with your company. How have you seen those brands either evolve or change, as well as your own company, to talk to those consumers?
Yeah, so Miss Grass is an online magazine and an e-commerce shop for women and cannabis with a much broader wellness mandate. And the benefit, obviously, about being an online platform is that we can be super data-driven and adapt in real time based on what's working and what's not. So on the content side, a lot of what we're doing right now really does speak to that canna-curious consumer, as Emily pointed out. So it's a lot of educational content that's packaged in beautiful, lifestyle-y ways that's snackable and digestible for consumers to understand what the endocannabinoid system is and how, you know, this product will affect them and what they should be feeling and what they should start with if they're new to cannabis, or if they had a bad experience on that edible years ago and thought they were dying and now want to approach the marketplace again. Where do they even start? And using a contextual marketing approach on the content side to then drive them to our e-commerce platform to influence purchases. So on the commerce side, we're a highly curated marketplace. So we've partnered with over 30 of the best brands across high-end paraphernalia and CBD products. And this modern consumer is one that expects higher standards like any other industry. If fashion, I expect my clothes to fit a certain way, and I expect a certain aesthetic. And it's the same consumer in cannabis too, that expects high design, high quality, and high function. So we really partner with who we feel are really touching on those 3 points.
Excellent. Mark, I'm interested, as you saw the consumer change over the last year, how did that affect your app development and content focus?
Actually, you know, we didn't have to pivot because our whole business premise is based on this specific problem of addressing how to help the modern consumer find products that meets their needs.
Good deal. Yeah. You were prescient.
We nailed it.
With your business model, unlike some of us. Emily?
I actually did a complete pivot. When I first started Mondo, it was actually a granola bar because I wanted to create a daily edible for everyone. And within this, it was delicious. It was 70 milligrams, and it was great. It worked well, you know, for 3 years or so. And then I moved to California, and I kind of realized, you know, 70 milligrams, nor is a granola bar a daily edible for everyone. And so I realized everyone can actually get benefits from low dose or from microdosing. Not everyone gets benefits from a little bit more than that. And so I decided, you know what, I need to pivot. And I needed to figure out a way that I could make this cannabis product approachable for people who are nervous to try cannabis. So I wanted to make it almost like a supplement and really, really easy to use. You can just get 1 or 2 milligrams at a time, and it kind of absorbs quickly. And so with this kind of whole change in the cannabis consumer, I was like, okay, and pivot, flip, a whole new thing. I even changed the aesthetic and everything because I really wanted it to make it like discreet, almost seen like a cosmetic, so that it was almost like that more lifestyle kind of approachable thing. So it could be put on your shelf and no one would be the wiser. So so I did a whole 180.
In pivoting to reach that, to meet what you perceive that consumer needs, there's one of the challenges that we face as an industry are limited avenues to actually talk to the consumer unless you can get to them face to face. I would like to hear from everyone on the panel as to how you're going about, whether it's in-store or in-app or online or on social, how are you navigating the pitfalls that many companies have to face in advertising and marketing? Because this, especially when you start talking about addressing seniors, when you start talking about addressing that housewife with 2 kids at home, that's the soccer mom that wants to chill in the van while the kids are on the field, and that does happen. And but I'm curious as to what ways are you utilizing to then talk to those consumers if, according to the California rules and regulations, you cannot advertise on any medium unless 71.6% of the audience is over the age of 21. Many social networks do not allow for any advertising or marketing placement. And we just seen recently the advent of YouTube pulling basically all cannabis education, cannabis-related content, which you would think would have been a perfect vehicle for the education, making that consumer comfortable, and being able to talk to the current consumer that you had as well as the new one. Kate.
Yeah, so it is definitely a challenge, especially being an online platform and coming from a more traditional entertainment background where if we had a piece of content, you put paid media behind it and you can target exactly your audience across social and traditional channels to reach that. And unfortunately, in the landscape that we work in the cannabis space, you cannot do those type of things. So it's a lot of thinking outside the box. And we have tried a bunch and are still working and figuring out exactly what drives the most ROI, but it's things like partnering with talent and direct publications that are more wellness focused, that are reaching that consumer. So we're developing and producing content that lives not only on Miss Grass, but on platforms like Refinery 29 and platforms where that modern woman is viewing content, and we can kind of reach her that way. So influencer marketing we're doing a lot in the experiential world. So obviously it's difficult to really scale when you're creating an event because you can reach the people that come to the event, and obviously the idea would be that they post about it and then it kind of like scales that way. But especially I think in this space, creating those local ambassadors that are fans of your brand that can go out in the universe and kind of speak about you. So we're doing a lot of events that integrate cannabis seamlessly into it. And yeah, we're doing a lot of influencer marketing we found has worked really well.
Seriously, I would like to hear from you on kind of on that in regards to influencer marketing. You mentioned earlier many athletes have experienced marijuana as part of their daily routine, if you will. You see people such as Al Harrington and some well-known athletes beginning to get into that that influencer marketing and own their own brands. Do you see that as a future avenue for companies to tie in with known celebrities or known athletes as a way to reach that audience?
Yeah, I mean, I think, listen, this is a little bit of a short-term problem before we really step into federal regulation. I personally have a little bit of a conundrum in representing athletes and then also having limitations in terms of what, really stepping into the light in terms of their cannabis consumption, because they have partnerships with brands that are very restrictive. And so I think it's, influencer marketing is increasingly important, really identifying and working with people that are influencers and really appreciate the products and our cannabis, authentic cannabis consumers, I think is certainly an important aspect of marketing and an opportunity and a workaround for the limitations that we currently are confronted with.
Other out-of-the-box ideas, guys?
I mean, we're a storefront, so some of that is still old school. Now that we're finally in this licensing process in LA after 10 years, we're renovating our building so that it's very welcoming and warm. We're very limited on signage that we can put on the outside of the building, so we just want to make it feel welcoming and somewhere that people would like to be. And I guess even if you go before that, is the location of our business is in a good area. It's a visible area. There's foot traffic there. So, we're still reaching customers kind of the old school way in that sense. And then there are some social media platforms that are more friendly than others, such as Instagram, where we have been shut down, but we were able to regain our account with a local license, which was kind of nice. And then it's just really focused on the customer experience because, again, we are local, so we don't have to promote throughout the entire state, really just our area. And by giving that great experience, encouraging people to give reviews, to refer their friends, the loyalty bonus points, we're still reaching our people that way.
I mean, at Doja, we actually support brands, help launch products into the marketplace, and help them find their customers both online and offline. So in dispensaries specifically, we offer shelf space to brands that are on our app in what we call the Doja shelf in the dispensaries. And we also do something called Doja Days, which is a type of patient appreciation day where our reps can talk about the cultivation values and the production values of the brands. But it's also an opportunity for the reps, to discuss things like pesticide awareness and solvent awareness, with the patients.
So I hear a lot of one-on-one marketing almost. Emily?
Well, one-on-one marketing is the most effective. Is it not? Word of mouth? What we're doing at Mondo is we've actually found the best ROI coming from when we're doing brand events with people outside of the cannabis space. So we're doing a lot of education within kind of women's leadership groups, other business summits, networking events. I'm also doing a lot of work with chefs and other kind of cooks and things like that. I found that a lot of people want, like the new cannabis consumer are always really interested in dinner parties and things like that. They want to kind of come and have this kind of experience. And so I'm able to kind of help usher that and provide that. Additionally, having those brand ambassadors continuously educate, going out into the community, talking to people, and getting people really excited has always seemed to be like really where we like to be.
Awesome.
One thing I'd like to say we do too, which has been pretty fun, is local promotions with local businesses. So even though they're not cannabis businesses, we'll talk to them, introduce ourselves, which is just good in general because they have customers, they're in the area. But then we're giving away points for our rewards program if you shop at some of those stores, if you go to the theater down the street. So that's a way that we're working with the community, they're getting to know us, and we're advertising at the same time.
Can I ask, what do I get with those points?
With those points, you get product, not for free, but for a penny.
A penny, right? You want to explain? You want to explain the penny thing?
So nothing. You can't give anything away for free anymore. You have to at least charge a penny just to properly, I guess, track everything. So yeah.
So to leave enough time for questions, I'm going to throw one final question out. I'd like to hear from each one of you, and then we'll spend the last 10 minutes with the audience asking what they would like to know. But for last Friday, it was announced that the BCC announced that they were extending the emergency regulations for another 180 days in California. And what that means is that those regulations, while still in effect, will not be enforced until the 1st of November. What do you see as the biggest trend as a result of the regulations and enforcements that we all have to meet in California now, if you touch the product, and even if you're an affiliated business with the product? What do you see the top trend in affecting the consumer out of those regulations?
I think there's going to be I think there's going to be a lot of things on sale. Getting rid of non-compliant packaging. So get your shopping bags out.
You want to expand upon that just a second, because that is one of the big aspects of the enforcement of the compliance is, Aaron, and you can expand upon this, product cannot be on the shelves after the emergency regulation if they are not compliant, correct?
Correct. Yeah.
So how do you get rid of all that stuff?
Have sales. Yeah, I mean, the regulations some of them are really burdensome. For example, one thing that really bothers me with the new proposed regulations is that retailers have to have 24/7 on-site security guards. And that's just ridiculous. I mean, we have to build vault rooms now. We can't have anything on the floor. Everything will be in the vault. We've never had a security guard overnight. It's literally ridiculous. I mean, banks don't have security guards overnight. And it's a huge expense. So the more they put these burdensome, expensive regulations on us, the less we can invest in that customer experience, the less we can hire better people, expand our businesses. So those regulations, they have to get rid of the burdensome ones, and also lower the taxes for the customer, because that is just going to encourage customers to go to the black market, where they're going to have those less than ideal experiences, and they're going to just in general relate those to buying cannabis, and that's just not good for any of us.
Awesome. Let's start with some questions out here, and if y'all can jump in. Yes, sir.
Well, no, I'm fine with security during operating hours. It's just overnight. They want that 24/7 security now.
All that investment and that extra time to have security, you don't think is important?
No, because I mean, we have, alarm systems, vault rooms. It's like, I mean, we don't have it now. We've been there 10 years. If somebody, so they made us put in a camera system that literally we have like 5,000 square feet, and the camera system costs us like $40,000. So it's like we have 45 cameras, non-stop HD recording, and if an intruder even gets in our driveway, there's monitoring services that are watching, and then so it's over the top.
Does your phone just ring like all night long?
Not just mine, yeah, because but yeah, we'll get alerts or something like that. Not all night, thankfully, but sometimes wakes me up. What's that?
Do you have to keep logs?
Mm-mm.
Other questions?
I want to shoot a video.
Yes, sir.
Hi, with your CRM platform, what is the biggest thing that you use to integrate that into your customer experience for the new customers, while at the same time keeping the flow for the existing customers that we've had for the last 10 years? Like, how do we integrate the technology becoming, it's going to be necessary from the future? How do we integrate that without making it robotic with the customers?
Well, so for example, like on our emails, if they're a new adult use customer, they'll get a certain email welcoming them. Whereas if they're a medical patient and their rec's expiring, they'll get an email about that. I mean, we're just trying to stay in communication with them through different platforms, but it's not really complicated. All the customers kind of like the same thing. Maybe I don't.
So like, okay, so like in certain customer relationship management platforms, you use a tablet in the lobby to fill out like the initial information, but we figured out a way to integrate that into the customer experience so that
Yeah.
the bartenders or the cannabis consultants that are working with the patients, they have a way to use that and show the customers that they can go online and update the things on, like, for instance, baking technologies. They have a bunch of different ways that the consumer on their end can manipulate and change their preferences in case they get something they didn't like.
Yeah.
Even though it fit what they wanted, it still wasn't what they wanted, you know what I mean? So they go back and edit it.
Yeah, so we use Baker. I mean, I get with all these technologies, because they're in the cannabis space, they are also just run into roadblocks that all cannabis businesses run into, and so lack of funding, and they are not as good as a lot of the platforms out there. And one of the biggest things we're trying to do now is integrate like Baker with our point of sale system, so that if it runs out of inventory on the point of sale, that it automatically pulled off the menu in Baker. And right now that is a manual process, which can leave customers upset, because if that person who's checking the menu is off that day, then the menu could be wrong that day. So we're just really following the roadmaps of these tech companies. I'm doing a lot of, for point of sale, for example, I've called more dispensary owners than I've ever called for anything, just trying to get that deep, in-depth feedback on the point of sale system. So technology is getting better in this space, and just integrating them all together is an issue.
So seriously, that was one thing you mentioned earlier of ultimately utilizing the technology for customized service and solutions. How does that play into a CRM system within whether a retailer that you use or your own systems?
Well, I mean, really, it comes down to, APIs that can talk to each other, and I think testing is interesting because it allows for you to kind of go and look at what it is that you're actually consuming in all of the nuances and details of that. So I think that's one of the trends that benefits the consumer.
Definitely. Testing,
maybe the only one that I can think of that the regulatory
Excellent.
scheme provides.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I think our customer experience is the banking piece. That's becoming. How are you guys working around the current banking regulations or restrictions to be better at creating a customer experience?
Hey, Emily, you want to take? You look like you have a thought there.
Yeah.
Well, round of applause for me. I just got a bank account. No, it was something that was absolutely stressful for the longest time. I was getting checks from distributors, and I didn't have any place to put it. So what I did, I actually opened up a second CBD company and had it under a miscellaneous drink mix, and I got a bank account. So that's for one. Now, I'm still waiting to have a local municipal bank for the THC version, but I have to kind of do a little bit of finagling, unfortunately. But I do have a place to store it, not under the mattress.
Aaron, you were going to add?
Yeah, it's so what I do is I'm not doing any more interviews about banking, because I did one in the San Fernando Valley Business Journal, and then my bank account got shut down later. So I don't do that anymore. And yeah, so that's it.
As a follow-up, do you see the central bank happening in the next year here in California?
I mean, Los Angeles is really determined, the government here, to create a cannabis bank, which they're saying is, this is just a Los Angeles bank, but it'll have an emphasis. Cannabis license operators in LA could use it. So it's possible, and I know other places have tried it, but I mean, without sounding smug, they weren't Los Angeles. So Los Angeles there's a motion on the floor, and they're trying to create a bank. We'll
Awesome.
see.
Yes.
Newsom might help.
Yeah.
But I just came back from the National Cannabis Industry Association lobbying days.
Oh, congratulations. Yes.
Number one thing that we all agree on is we need states' rights, we need a bank system that works, and we need to
Hey, go NCIA!
Thank you.
Sorry, I wasn't there this year. I have been there though, for that.
Anyone else have any? Yes, yes.
I'm not sure if you guys are also leaders in amazing businesses in this space. So, there's burdensome, there's burden, and then there's growth. But where do you go and where do we go as leaders to stand together and say this is not right? Is there beyond that? I mean, I get it, but I don't trust so much of what's happening. And when you look at all of us on the front lines of risking our lives for this plant and the right thing when other people are trying to take away some of the education, the benefits that we're working hard to share. Is there a forum or a place that we can go where you go as leaders to kind of
Yeah, so I mean, so specifically in your own city, there's city council meetings, things like that. That's the most effective acting locally. So right now there's a lot of rules and regulations coming up in Los Angeles, even yesterday morning, where they're taking public comment and they really are listening. So anytime there's a city council or a meeting like that around cannabis, I would show up, give your opinion. It goes a lot farther than you think. Recently in where I live in my city, I spoke up at a city council meeting, and this is not far, California, and they said I was the first person to ever speak up for cannabis in that city. So it goes a really long way. And not to lessen what she said, NCIA, the National Cannabis Industry Association, I am a board member, and it's an amazing organization, and they just had, I think, 350 cannabis professionals from all over the country for a week, just hitting all, I mean, nothing's bigger than that on federal lobbying, so it's awesome. And then there's groups like Americans for Safe Access that are focused on medical. So that's some options.
I must say, even the apps such as Meetup, you go on Meetup and there are multiple cannabis community forums, groups, interactions listed in every week. I've had people say there seems to be something every day within the community, and actually there is, which is how this dialogue is happening. I think that's wonderful. I believe we are out of time. I would say if you've got any questions, they've asked that we meet outside so that the next group can come in. I want to thank the panel. Very informative. Wonderful. Appreciate it.